The Hurry Up.
Hey guys, welcome into this week of The Hurry Up. I'm your host, Rachel Holt. We're on to week 5 of the NFL season, and at this point, things have been anything but predictable. The New York Giants are winless. The New England Patriots are tied with the New York Jets in their division and sit behind the Buffalo Bills. And Trevor Siemian has a better record than Tom Brady. We're joined now by Nicholas Goss with a look at some NFL storylines up until this point. And Nick, crazy things are happening so far. I want to ask you, are the Chiefs now the clear favorite in the AFC with their 4-0 record?
I think they are. You talk about unpredictability. One of the constants we've had the last few years is great regular season performances by the Kansas City Chiefs. They have the best point differential in the league at plus 45. Kareem Hunt is an MVP candidate. Alex Smith is playing the best he's ever played at quarterback for the Chiefs. Great balance on offense. Their D is playing really well too, putting pressure on the quarterback. But again, with the Chiefs, we need to see this in the playoffs. We've seen them be great in the regular season the last few years, but when the playoffs come, the intensity and pressure ratchets it up. They failed to live up to expectations. So that's when we're going to really judge them. But for now, you got to like what you're seeing.
How much trouble are the Oakland Raiders in at this point? 2 straight losses. Not only that, but Derek Carr goes down with a back injury. He may be out for a month.
Yeah, this would be a huge blow to the Raiders. They already were struggling a little bit with them last 2 games. You mentioned they lost. Only 10 points scored in each of the last 2 games to the Raiders. Michael Crabtree, who's a great number 2 receiver, or okay number 1, just under 5 catches and only 15 yards in each of the last 2 games combined. Their defense has forced 0 interceptions so far. They had 16 last year, which is tied for the 3rd most in the league. And they're in a really tough division. We already talked about the Chiefs being undefeated. The Broncos are 3-1. The Chargers are 0-4, but they keep games close. So they really have to improve right now, the Raiders, or their season could spiral out of control without Carr.
I already mentioned the AFC East. No one saw that coming at this point in the season. What about the NFC South? What team is the best in that division?
You know, I'm going to have to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They really impressed me last week, bouncing back from a tough loss against Minnesota. It looked like they were going to lose this past week to the Giants. They gutted it out. Their defense is playing pretty well. Jameis Winston has a ton of weapons to throw to. Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson is probably one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. And I look at some of the other teams in that division. Carolina's 3-1, but they haven't really impressed me too much outside of last week. The Falcons are 3-1, but they were lucky to win against the Lions. They were lucky to win against the Bears. And Matt Ryan already has 5 interceptions. So when I look at the balance of the teams, offense, defense, and how they're playing so far, I have to say the Buccaneers are the best team in the NFC South.
Okay, well, I love it. It's all unpredictable at this point. We'll see if the Patriots can right the ship this week. So we're going to send it out to Gillette Stadium, where they have more.
Courtney Cox here with Doug Kyde and Zach Cox at Gillette Stadium, and it is time to preview the Patriots and Tampa Bay. They kick off on Thursday night, a little Thursday night football, but the Pats are having a little bit of trouble so far this season. The main question, what is wrong with the Patriots?
It's all defense. Defense. Communication issues are probably their biggest problem. They were leaving wide receivers wide open, and really, if they hadn't had about 4 really big bad plays out there on this field, Patriots probably could have beat the Panthers. And a lot of those issues appear to be stemming from Stephon Gilmore, who signed a big old contract to the Patriots this offseason that is not working out so far. So if they can fix that issue, they'll probably start to look a little better, but it hasn't been fixed through 4 weeks of the season.
So you have to agree defense is the problem.
Absolutely. More specifically, secondary is the problem. I know going into the season, people were saying, well, this team might be a little bit weak in the pass rush. I don't know if they quite have the horses there. Their pass rush has been okay. It hasn't been great, but it's been fine. The secondary has been an absolute disaster. And like Doug said, it all kind of seems to stem from Stephon Gilmore just not really knowing where he's supposed to be on each play, what his role is in each kind of defensive formation. And it's really concerning that this is still happening now a month into the season.
But Tom Brady, still is doing fine. That is a bright spot when you look at Tom Brady.
Yeah, the offense looks fine. I think everyone was pretty concerned about the offense after week 1 when Tom Brady only completed 44.4% of his passes. That's been totally different since then. And really, Tom Brady did everything he could have done to lead the Patriots to victory on Sunday until the defense let the Panthers march down the field and kick a game-winning field goal. So offensively, they look fine.
They've scored 30 or more in each of their last 2 games. Scoring 30 points should be enough to get you a win in the NFL, and it will be enough to get the Patriots plenty of wins if this defense can be even passable. That's all they need. They don't need a great defense. They need an okay defense.
Thursday is right around the corner, so for you guys, do the Patriots get a win against Tampa Bay?
I think they do, and this might be a bold take, but I actually think the defense will look decent in this game, like they did in week 2 against the Saints. I think that being on the road, I think the short week, it's going to be kind of weird week here because it is such a short week. I think the defense looks a little better out there.
One thing that's concerning, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 6 plays of 25 25 yards or more in their win over the Giants last week. Needed a last-second field goal to squeak that game out. This is a dangerous team, probably a team that not many Patriots fans know a lot about outside of Jameis Winston. Thursday night games, always kind of funky. I'm predicting 25-22 Patriots.
All right, well, there you have it. If you have any questions or want to follow along with these two guys, it's at Doug Kide and at Zach Cox Nesson. But keep it locked in right here, Nesson.com. We've got everything you need to know leading up to game time and all through the game.
And now we're joined by Mike Cole with a look at our lock and upset of the week. First off, who's your lock?
For my lock, I'm going to take, and this is weird, what a world we're living in. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Rams.
What?
OddsShark has them as 1.5-point favorites against Seattle. This game's in Los Angeles. It feels very dirty taking the Rams as my lock, especially against Seattle, but they've had their way with Seattle over the last few years. And the one thing with Seattle is a lot of injuries right now. Chris Carson, the running back, he's got an ankle injury. He's out for the foreseeable future. So that's going to put a lot more pressure on Russell Wilson to throw the ball. That's potentially bad news going up against a defensive front like the Rams have. Russell Wilson's been sacked 10 times this season already, 39 times in 10 career games against Los Angeles. I think they get after him, kind of put pressure on him. We all know how bad that Seattle offensive line can be. And Todd Gurley's been fantastic so far this season. 5.6 yards per touch. That's carry or reception. He's really turned into the player we all thought he'd be. So I think this is a good spot for the Rams. It's a real show-me game for the Rams.
Well, Mike, in your defense, the NFL is a weird place
Yes,
right now.
yeah, that's true.
What about an upset?
For my upset, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. I really like this Bills team. I've been on them all year. I don't think that they're going to necessarily hold that spot atop the AFC East, but the defense is just really good. And, you know, there's a lot of injury issues on that offensive side of the ball, but I think the defense makes the difference here. Both the Bengals and Bills, very good defensive teams, but not great offensive. They both rank in the top 10 in defensive yards per play allowed, but they're in the bottom 10 in offensive yards per play in terms of their own offense. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think if it's a low-scoring game, that kind of favors the underdog. And you look at, I think the difference is turnovers. Cincinnati is ranked bottom of the league with -5 turnover rating. The Bills, for all the offensive injuries they have, take care of the football, +6 turnover ratio, second best in the NFL. I think that they get a big turnover late that kind of keeps them close, and they find a way to win this game outright in Cincinnati.
Okay, so will the Bills stay atop the AFC East one more week? Mike's saying yes. Okay, that's your lock and upset.
All right, thank you, Rachel. Now I'm here with Nick Goss. I'm Andre Cacciaturian. Nick, do you remember back in elementary school, the first quarter of school would wrap up and then in the mail your report card would show up with all the grades, how you did in math and science and social studies and all that stuff. Remember those times?
I do. Simpler times.
Yeah, very simpler times. We're going to do the same now for the NFL. The first quarter of the season is over. Most teams have 4 games under their belt. Let's give out some grades.
Let's do it.
New England Patriots. Let's start off with them, the hometown team here in Boston. They're 2-2, struggling. What grade are you going to give them?
I'm going to give them a C.
Wow.
For average. In school,
Okay.
C was average. The Patriots right now, I think, are an average team. They have a tremendous offense, second most points scored, but their defense has been absolutely atrocious. Second most points allowed on the season. One thing that really concerns me, their play at home. They're 1-2 at home. They're probably going to lose another game at home at least. They haven't lost 3 more games at home since 2008 when Matt Castle was the quarterback. They're not protecting home field. Their defense is just the bad communication, which is you don't see that a lot from a Bill Belichick defense. I need to see a lot more from them if I'm going to pick them to win the Super Bowl going forward. So I'm going to give them a C average.
C- for me. I'm going to go a notch lower because their defense is so bad that they're not spending any time barely on special teams. I think the Patriots are a very good team on special teams. Their punt game is very good. Their punt coverage is very good. They get a lot of breaks on that in the past. They haven't even been able to do that. They don't force the other team to get to punt. So I'm going to take that a notch lower. C-, again, 7.2 yards allowed per play. It's horrifying. Now let's move on to the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys, they were a Super Bowl favorite for many teams coming into the season, but they're 2-2 right now. I kind of saw this happening with them. What grade would you give them?
I would give them a C+. I think 2-2 isn't bad. It's a tough division. Although Ezekiel Elliott led the NFL in rushing last year, he's averaging less than 70 yards per game rushing, just 2 touchdowns. They're 26th in points against. They're not scoring a ton either. Dak Prescott has been okay. He hasn't really won them a game yet. Their only 2 wins were against an okay Arizona team and a Giants team that's 0-4. I think they're better than 0-4, but still not a tremendous win. So I'm going to go C+, a little bit better than average.
Look, it's so easy to look at that 2-2 record and say what you just said, C+. You got to dig deeper with this Dallas Cowboys team. Look deeper and you'll see their defense isn't as bad as you think it is. They only allow 5 yards per play, which is top 10. Their yards per play differential is 0.6, one of the highest in the league. I'm giving them a B+. Let me tell you, I understand that the teams that they beat haven't been all that great, but their losses Denver's a tough team that they lost to, and they also lost to the LA Rams, who I think is one of the best teams in the NFC. Let's move on to stay in the NFC. We'll go to the Seattle Seahawks, another 2-2 team. How are you grading them?
I don't really like the Seahawks.
No.
Their defense, I think, is not as good as it has been in the past. Russell Wilson, I think, has done the best with just an atrocious offensive line. Their running game hasn't been great. They've had injuries and inconsistency. They beat up on the Colts. They barely beat the San Francisco 49ers in week 2, I believe.
What's your grade?
It's D.
D, wow.
D. They should win this division because they are clearly better than any team in this division. They are just playing so poorly. We did a debate a couple weeks ago on Russell Wilson, the offensive line. They haven't helped him at all. I would have agreed
with you with D, but their performance against Indianapolis in that second half, they did what they had to do against them.
They did.
And for that reason, I'm going to give them a C. If they can just keep beating up on bad teams like they have been this year, and a C works because that's an 8-8 record. It's right in the middle. And I'm going to give them a C for that. But right now, Darren Hartwell is itching to give you his fantasy waiver wire picks. Let's send it across the set to Rachel and Darren. Take it away.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that scintillating discourse. I'm joined now by Darren Hartwell with a look at the fantasy football waiver wire. And Darren, we're just trucking along in this fantasy football season. It's now week 5. It's also a bye week, and there were a number of injuries last week to key players. So we need to pick some guys up and make our roster as good as it can be at this point. Who are some guys you're looking at?
Yeah, big week on the waiver wire this week. One guy I like who's kind of an injury replacement is Aaron Jones for the Packers. Ty Montgomery, we saw him go down with a nasty-looking rib injury. I actually like Jones, how he ran in place of Montgomery. He had 13 carries for 49 yards and a touchdown. Jamal Williams, their other rookie running back, is also a little banged up, so he could kind of be the lead back there if Montgomery and Williams don't go. And it's a pretty good matchup against the Cowboys. So I like him, and then I also like Will Fuller on the Texans at wide receiver. He caught 2 touchdown passes from Deshaun Watson in his debut, his 2017 debut. I think they could develop a little chemistry there. Obviously, as time goes along, he didn't have many targets, but he's kind of the number 2 wide receiver for Watson behind DeAndre Hopkins. So I like him too.
Okay, what about a guy that may look good on paper, but you just want to stay away from in week 5?
Yeah, actually, one guy who fits that mold is Latavius Murray. Again, with the injuries, we saw Dalvin Cook go down. He's out for the season with an ACL injury. And I think Murray's going to be the lead back going forward, and he's probably worth adding in all of your leagues. But just in terms of week 5, I don't really like their matchup. They're playing the Bears, who actually have been pretty good against the run. They haven't allowed more than 67 running yards to a running back this season. And he's actually averaging only 2.7 yards per carry right now. He's still dealing with that ankle injury a little bit. So even if you pick him up, I wouldn't start him in week 5.
Okay, well, good luck in your fantasy football leagues. If you don't do well, you can blame Darren on Twitter at Darren_Hartwell. Now we're going to send it over to Ricky Doyle with a look at Show and Tell.
The name of the game is Show and Tell. This is where I bring in objects each week and use them to give you a few developing thoughts I have on the 2017 NFL season. First object. Well, we got ourselves a dollar bill. You rip that in half, you got Bills, plural, the Buffalo Bills. I like what they got going on so far this season. Sean McDermott has a little bit of a culture change going up there in Orchard Park. You look at that defense. It took until week 4 for them to give up a passing touchdown. You also look at the offense. They only have 1 turnover so far this season. They went 15 consecutive quarters without turning the ball over. Ball security equals job security. I think the Buffalo Bills right now have a little bit of a window, particularly with the Oakland Raiders losing Derek Carr for a few weeks, to maybe slide into a potential playoff spot. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far just yet, but you look at the Bills' wins over the Broncos and the Falcons. I think that team's pretty legit. I'm not ready to say they're going to knock off the Patriots in the AFC East or anything, but the Bills certainly should have your attention at this point. Speaking of the Raiders and the Patriots, both teams have had some pretty terrible D thus far, and that's why I'm knocking them down in my power rankings. Right now, I think the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos are the 2 best teams in the AFC. Until the Patriots and Raiders clean things up a bit, I'm not so sure if they're going to be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, either one of those teams. So right now, Chiefs and Broncos, that's where it's at in the AFC. And finally, if we want to continue to talk about some piss-poor play in the AFC, let's break out an umbrella here. I know people are going to get mad at me about this, and they say you open an umbrella indoors, it's bad luck. Well, guess what? Sometimes you got to make your own luck. And this is exactly what the Los Angeles Chargers have to do, because I'm sick and tired week after week of putting some stock and putting some faith into them, only to see them crumble under pressure. I like Phillip Rivers. I think he's a good quarterback. But somewhere along the line, you just gotta come up with a big win here. Otherwise, you lose me. So if I'm the Chargers, I gotta start making my own luck. Stop pulling something out because I'm getting real sick of seeing them fumble all over themselves week after week. Sorry, Chargers. Sorry, LA. You got a pretty crap team. Fortunately, you have the Rams you can hang your hat on.
You're getting standing ovation in the back.
That'll do it for this week's episode of The Hurry Up. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you come back next week and enjoy the games.